Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Schaus coming to you live from Washington, D.C. and our Webinar Wednesday series. We host webinars every Wednesday at noon Eastern and 12:30, covering a variety of government contracting topics. We just finished an 8A certification checklist, and now we are about to dig into the timing and when to pull the trigger on the 8A certification. So thanks for joining us today. So let's get started here and we'll dig into the presentation. As I mentioned, we do host these webinars every Wednesday. They are complimentary and they're recorded, so you can find today's recording on our website either later today or at least by Friday. Additionally, we post those on our YouTube channel, which has over, I'll say, about 100, 150, maybe even 200 webinars at this point. To keep these short and concise, we do not take questions. So if you have any questions about 8A certification or the timing or any other government contracting topics, you can email us directly, either through our website or shoot us an email. Contact information is going to be on the last slide. We offer newsletter and webinar advertising. Our newsletter goes out every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We reach about 15,600 unique subscribers, and you can contact Mallory Flowers for more information. And speaking of advertisers, today's webinar is sponsored by AccuTrack Services. They are a small woman-owned business with the 8A certification, and they provide accounting services for government contractors, including DCAA audits, budget forecasting, cost allocation, bookkeeping and reporting, and other services that you see listed there. If you have questions or you want to learn more about AccuTrack, please go to their website at accutrack.biz, and their phone number is listed there as well. Okay, and a little bit about us. We provide services for federal contractors. We work with both product and service companies, domestic and foreign, small, mid-size, and large businesses. Our list of services is there, including GSA schedules, 8A certification, which we're discussing today, and other services including contract administration, sales, business development, and marketing. You can find more about our services on our website under the services section. My background is listed here, and today, as I mentioned, we are talking about the timing of the 8A certification and when to pull the trigger. So let's first just talk about the 8A certification, what it is. It is a small business designation, and that will vary based on the business at hand. So if you're a construction business or an IT professional services business, or you're selling some sort of product, your business size standards as defined by SBA will be different. Sometimes it's based on your annual revenues over the last 3 or now through the NDAA 5-year average. Sometimes it's based on the number of full-time employees that your business has. So this will vary by your primary NAICS code, your industry code. So again, you need to be a small business to get the 8A certification. And it is reserved for companies that are socially and economically disadvantaged. It's not one or the other. You need to prove both. And there's a full litany of documents that go into the package in order to obtain and secure the 8A certification. It's a 9-year program. It is not an 8-year program. Many companies think that it is 8 years because of the 8A. 8A is where the description and the requirements fall within the federal regulations. So it's a 9-year program, and year 1 to 4 is the development phase. If you think of a bell curve, it's going to be going up the hill to about the top, and then the transition phase will be the bottom of the bell, well, the tail end of the bell curve, so from the top to the far right-hand side. And that transition phase is when you should be looking for other companies that are entering the program that you can pass the baton back to. It's a one-time certification, meaning that you cannot receive the certification once as a IT professional services firm and then decide 20 years down the road you're going to start a HVAC business and then incorporate under a different name, different tax ID, you're based in a different state, and then suddenly you now want to get the 8A certification. It is tied to the business owner, so once you have that, you cannot get it again, regardless of the business, regardless of the company name, regardless of the location where the business is. It is, again, once and done. So be very, very certain that when you are pulling the trigger on this, that you know exactly what you're doing, and we'll get into more of those details. Some of the benefits to the 8A, and this is why it is so popular. There are set-aside contracts for 8A firms, and then special contracts for the sole source, meaning there's only one entity out there that can perform the terms and conditions of the contract. And there are advantages, and you're more attractive to the buyer or the prime contractor who is looking for a subcontractor or someone to participate in the mentor-protege program. You're, again, more attractive in joint ventures, and there's special advantages there, as well as teaming agreements. Cannot reiterate enough, timing is everything with this certification. So unlike the GSA schedule, where at the end of your 20-year contract, you can reapply and get back onto the schedule, or some of the other certifications for, say, HubZone, that as long as you meet the requirements, you can maintain and hold that designation. 8A is 9 years once and done. So just because you meet the requirements does not mean that you should be proceeding. Must be this tall to ride this roller coaster doesn't mean that you should be riding the roller coaster. And unfortunately for many, I'd say, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but for many companies that do pursue the 8A certification, they usually figure it out by about years 7, 8, or 9, and they've only used those 3 years, if that, to capitalize on having that designation. So we'll get into some strategies in just a moment. Some things that we feel that some companies should have in place before pursuing the certification. Obviously, yes, meeting the requirements, meeting and exceeding the requirements, but you should also have more than the 2 required years of business experience. We prefer that you have at least 3 to 5, and with 80 to 90% of that being government experience. So not that 80 or 90% of your business needs to be government, but that you should have at least a solid 4 to 5 years of doing work directly or indirectly as a subcontractor with the federal government. You need to understand the waters that you're going to be swimming in before you decide to kind of go it alone. That 8A certification is then going to make it easier for the government to award directly to you. So you want to use those first couple of years in order to understand how the big guys are doing it, and even how some of the smaller guys are doing it. So you want to be well-versed in federal contracting, understand the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the rule book, how contracts can be set aside for 8As. And the FAR is available online. It's not the lightest reading, but it would make sense to investigate and read up on the 8A certification. You want to have significant revenue, meaning you want to be successful both direct and or subcontracting to the primes in federal government contracting. You also want to make sure that in your pipeline that you've got some opportunities that are going to be set aside for 8As, whether it's you've had a conversation with a couple agencies or within one agency in a couple different divisions that the program manager has told you, yeah, we're probably going to set this aside for 8A, or we'd love to award this to you if you were 8A certified, or that you have something on paper, whether it's documentation for subcontracting agreement that's contingent upon your 8A certification, or budget forecasts that show here's how big the market is for my specific NAICS code within the 8A, and here's what I think I can do better than the other companies that I'd be competing with within that 8A pool. If you can't answer those questions, number one, how big is the market for your specific industry code, your NAICS code within 8A? And if you don't have a couple agencies that you can say, here's the dollar amount, but even more specifically, here are the opportunities that we will pursue, then you're pulling the trigger way too soon. You really need to wait and have done this or have completed this market research to help guide you. So some strategies, as I was saying, you want to be specific, you want to be strategic and targeted, and have an 8A business plan. Again, how big is the market? Who's purchasing your products or services? How much, where, when? Are they also using any other contract vehicles? Is the competition an 8A company that also has a hub zone certification or also has a GSA schedule or some other contract vehicle? So do that homework, do some reverse engineering to learn basically the path that you'll need to take to be successful. So when you go direct to the feds, they have a small business goal of 23%, meaning that they are trying to award at least 23% of the contracts to small businesses. And then that gets broken down by women 5%, economically disadvantaged 5%, which is where the 8A would fall. The veteran certification is at 3%. And so you want to use the acquisition forecast to build a pipeline and your pipeline to build relationships. And what I mean by that is every agency is required, and they're not always great at doing this, and you can use the OSDBUs to help push them along to post their forecast. And then you go onto each agency's website, look at their budget forecast, their acquisition forecast for what they are purchasing within your NAICS code. Look at what is then set aside for small businesses. And then within that subset, what is set aside just for 8A companies, or where is there an 8A who is the incumbent? And then you can take that information, who's the incumbent, is that company in year 1 of their 8A certification, or are they in year 7 where they might be looking to, again, pass the baton back to a partner like you? Now, they're not going to do it just because you've got a really cool logo and a great company name. They are going to pass the baton back because you are also bringing something to the table. Past performance, experience, quality professional services, and perhaps maybe you're bringing them another opportunity as well. So use those acquisition forecasts. We have them listed as well as the OSDBUs all in one place on our website, and the link is there. More strategies, going indirect and partnering with other businesses, again, that are these kind of, I'll call them rising 8A graduates. But you want to make sure that these are successful businesses, because if you're just doing a simple search on the SBA Dynamic Database, Small Business Dynamic Database, you're going to get a handful of 8As in there. And I'm going to tell you that at least 50 or more percent, probably much more than 50%, have zero sales through their business as an 8A. They may have some contracts, but using that 8A designation, they may not have too much. So the way you can kind of reverse engineer is going then to the FPDS website. So the sites are listed there at the bottom in the links. And make sure that the companies that you're targeting that are getting ready to graduate, again, you probably want to identify somebody in year 6 or 7. By year 8 or 9, they probably have already found their partners that they're going to hand their business back to, or their contracts back to for fulfillment. So start talking to these companies at the right time when they are open to potentially looking for a company that will be entering the 8A program. And build relationships. That's the networking, that's the conferences, that's joining the FCAs, the CCAS, the NCMA, going to all the procurement fairs, and everything else. So just getting out there, hustling, and having grit day in, day out. You can also use the SBA Scorecard to identify the agencies that have the propensity to contract with 8As. So those that are banging it out of the park, that are getting A's and B pluses on their scorecard. But then you also maybe want to look at some agencies that are maybe not doing so well with small businesses. So they would then have a little bit of an impetus to bring up their score by contracting with you. I would say the latter is probably your second part of your strategy, and maybe start with the first, where you work with agencies that have done a really good job of contracting with small businesses. So again, use this data to reverse engineer. Once you then find and identify those agencies that are willing and have done a good job of working with small businesses, there are also going to be large businesses that are working with those agencies. So you can then scroll across on the scorecard and get to the top 100 contractors. Again, we've got links, easy links to both of those. So if you've identified that DHS has done a great job of working with small businesses, go then to the DHS top 100 contractors. It's not rocket science. It's data. It's out there. It's publicly available to everybody. Everyone is on the same playing field. And you've got access to this information. A knowledgeable contractor is going to make a better and more successful contractor. So use the data that's in front of you. So you then want to go to the DHS top 100 contractors. Go to their website, register as a small business, go to SPDS, do your research there to find out what other agencies are they working on, what contracts are they working on that are coming up for renewal. You don't want to go in there just waving a capability statement in front of somebody's face saying, hey, we're an 8A IT professional services firm. What else have you done? Where is your value? Where's your past performance? Where are the relationships that you have that maybe you can bring to the table? What's the value that you're bringing? What else can you do for them? Because if all you're doing is saying, hey, we're 8A, it's you and everybody else waving a flimsy piece of paper in front of them. Bring something to the table. So continuing with the strategies, you want to make sure that you do have this full pipeline, and everything that we just discussed on the last couple of pages will help you create that pipeline and refine it so that when you do have the certification or when you do secure that, all of your homework has been done, and then it's pretty much a turnkey process. Then it's just basically going back to these folks and saying, hey, we've got the 8A now, we're ready to roll. And so timing is never going to be perfect, but if you do all this homework up front, I think it will help you decide really when, and it's going to be a different decision for every company, but it really will help you decide when to pull the trigger. So stack the deck in your favor with specific opportunities, people, the RFP, you know who's involved, you know who the incumbent is, whether it's a large business that you want to be a sub to or an 8A that's getting ready to graduate. So you can stack the deck in your favor and then make the 8A just the key that you turn to unlock all the goods. Some concluding remarks. As soon as you get that 8A certification, you've got 3,285 calendar days. Obviously, there's a smaller portion of business days in there, but the clock is ticking. So make those days work in your favor. Make the certification unlock everything that's in your pipeline that is specific to 8A. And don't use that year 1 through 4 or 1 through 6 just to fill your pipeline. You can do that now. And you really want to specifically market to the opportunities, to the RFPs, not just, oh, we're going after DHS. It should be, we are going after this particular RFP that's coming up for renewal in January of 2020. The incumbent is an 8A and they're on the tail end of graduating. You really need to hone in and be specific. And don't be afraid to use the OSDBUs to help get some of these solicitations set aside for small businesses. That's what they're there for. That's their job. And it's, as always, whether you're pursuing 8A or not, it makes sense to respond early in the life cycle of a contract. So the genesis is going to be the sources sought, as it then will graduate up to an RFI and then potentially an RFP or RFQ. You want to get in there early. And the sooner you're in, the better. And if you're an 8A and you can get this set aside to kind of limit the pool of vendors that's going to be responding, to limit your competition even further, then great. We highly suggest, again, doing that. If you have questions about getting 8A certified, want us to review your package that has either been rejected, has come back with questions, or just a simple review before you submit, or you need help kind of A to Z getting everything put together and submitted, we're happy to help you with that. If you want to have a discussion about the timing and being more strategic with pulling the trigger on 8A or any other certification or contract vehicle. Contact information's there. Thanks for joining us today, and hope that you'll tune back in next Wednesday.